I'd like now to speak a bit about the 10 Precepts, often called the 10 Great Precepts. In Buddhism, it is understood that we already possess the true treasure of the Buddha nature. We are already an inseparable part of our true self, of the great immaculacy. The meaning of the 10 Great Precepts is based in this fact. Whenever we take refuge within our own heart, our own spiritual heart, we drop down under the levels of thought and feeling and willful impulse, down into that stillness, that bright stillness within ourselves. We reaffirm for ourselves, that whether we are fully conscious of it or not, the truth that our true treasure, our true refuge, the great immaculacy are within ourselves. That we are never separate from it, even for a moment. And this fact illuminates the purpose of the 10 Precepts. The purpose of the 10 Precepts is not to make you a good person, not to make you a virtuous person, not to make you a lovable person, or a person worthy to go to heaven, or a person not a person worthy of salvation, any of these things. The purpose of the 10 Precepts is to help us live in such a way that we do not blind ourselves to our true treasure. We do not blind ourselves through impulsive, willful action of thought, speech, and body to what we already possess. The precepts are about not chasing after illusions as if they were a true refuge. Now, of the three kinds of volitional action, actions of thought, actions of speech, and actions of body, the actions of thought are primary. All actions of speech and body come forth from actions of thought. In other words, before we said it or we did it, we first thought it. I haven't been reading anything in these talks, but I'm going to just read the first of the twin verses of the Dhammapada, the recorded sayings of the Buddha. All that we are is a result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts, it is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts, it is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. When we're sitting in meditation and we're continually returning back to center, we keep finding we've wandered off, we keep coming back to center. We're working on not being willful, not being foolishly attached to our passing thought. Meditation gives us the great tool for not creating pain and confusion for ourselves and for others. Because if we have to think it, and volitionally think it, and dwell on the thought in order to speak it or to do it, then meditation helps us get the right spiritual center from which to deal with the thought, from which to decide whether this particular thought is really a good one to act on, or whether it's better to just cool it for a bit. And let something deeper within us get a word in edgeways. Let's look at some of the precepts in this regard. The first of the 10 precepts is a precept, do not kill. I undertake the principle or rule of training to refrain from killing. In the level of action, this is to refrain from killing unnecessarily and willfully. Remember that whenever we eat food, we're taking life. Even if we're a vegetarian, we're taking life. Whenever we breathe, my master would say, whenever we breathe, we take in bacteria and we kill, our body kills them. Some of them anyway. So, we can't actually live without killing. But we can train ourselves to live in a way that we don't unnecessarily and willfully and wastefully and disrespectfully kill. Think about our thoughts for a moment. I'm sitting in meditation. Some particularly painful memory comes up, say. Do I immediately mentally turn on that memory and try to squash it, drive it out? Or do I sit still and allow it to arise and allow it to pass? If I turn on it and try to kill it, that is a kind of killing. An effort to kill. And since those painful memories have something behind them driving them that has an element of, sometimes an element of desperation in it, if I turn on them and try to throttle them, as it were, or strangle them mentally, I make that underlying need more desperate. And I'll deepen my suffering by doing this. Whereas if I allow it to come and I allow it to go, I allow a little chunk of that pain and confusion that's in there to wash through and find its way to its true refuge. What about the second precept? Do not steal. What if I'm meditating and I'm striving instead of just sitting still and being content within my center? What if I'm striving? What if I'm trying to get enlightened? In his rules for meditation, Great Master Dogen said, you must not strive thus to attain enlightenment in meditating. If I'm striving in this way, am I not, in a certain sense, trying to steal from myself? If I already possess the true treasure, then it is enough to just sit still and be content. I do not need to do an extra effort. It's enough effort just to stay rooted here, to keep coming back to center. So stealing and killing are both a kind of misguided effort. Earlier in these talks I said that all suffering really goes back in its original causes to trying to do the impossible. You can read each of these precepts, you can study each of these precepts, and come to see how in each one is advising you not to try to do the impossible. And you can do it just at the level of thought. I'm not going to go through each of the 10 precepts in this way. We will list the refuges, the 3 pure precepts, and the 10 great precepts, along with these video talks. And I also strongly recommend for an in-depth study of the precepts and their deepest spiritual implications that people read my Master's wonderful commentary on the precepts. And that is available on the North Cascades Buddhist Priory website, and we'll do a link directly to that point from this website. The third of the 10 great precepts is do not say that which is not true. Then there's do not misuse sexuality. Do not take drugs or, as it were, drug oneself and others with delusion. Do not be ungenerous and stingy. Do not speak against others. Do not be proud and judgmental. Do not indulge in anger. Do not be cynical. If you read these precepts, the exact wording is a little different on some of them than the terms I've just used. But I am emphasizing what their basic gist is. You can take any of them and just apply it to the way you treat yourself, your own experience in meditation. Let's take the one on do not be mean in giving either dharma or wealth, one on being ungenerous. There's so many different ways in which we can be ungenerous to ourselves. We can be unforgiving of our mistakes. We can be judgmental of ourselves. We can think against ourselves and speak against ourselves as well as against others. And when we indulge in these ways of being ungenerous to ourselves, we are, in a certain way, at a deep level, we can be, without knowing it, denying our own Buddha nature. Take another of these precepts. How about the one on deception? Do not say that which is not true. Well, before we ever said that which is not true, in some way or other we had to think that which is not true. So you say, don't deceive yourself. People who habitually attempt to deceive others are first and foremost deceiving themselves. And who do we really hurt by doing that? Ourselves. These 10 precepts are not a strict moral code that you have to live up to or you're found wanting. They are a way to have compassion for yourself, truly. And if we can learn to have true compassion for ourselves, then it's a lot easier to have compassion for others. We already possess the true treasure. The 10 precepts are about acting like we do. And that action begins with our actions of volitional thought.